Mr. Bonds? Okay, great.
You're live.
Great, thank you so much. Good evening, it's 6:31 p.m. and I'd like to call the November 27th Fergus Implementation Special Committee meeting of the South Orange Maplewood Board of Education to order. Mr. Burnside, can you please take the roll call?
Board Member Nubia Duvall-Wilson.
Present.
Board Member Regina Eckert.
Here.
Board Member Bill Gifford. Board Member Alyssa Malaspina. Board Member Kawi Telesford.
Here.
Board Member Arun Vadlamani.
Here.
Board Member Courtney Wingfield. Board President Caitlin Whitletter.
Here.
Board Member Johanna Wright.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. The school board meeting, please take note that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided in the following manner. A written notice was sent from the Office of the Secretary of the Board at 9:10 a.m. on November 17th, 2023. That said notice was sent via email to Maplewood and South Orange Township clerks and the editors of the News Record, Star Ledger, Tappan Soma, and the Village Green. The school board meeting is a business meeting in public and not a meeting with the public. Oftentimes, it may appear to members of our audience that the Board of Education takes action with very little comment and in many cases, a unanimous vote. Before a matter is placed on the agenda at a public meeting, the administration has thoroughly reviewed the matter with the superintendent. If the superintendent is satisfied that the matter is ready to be presented to the Board of Education, it is then referred to the appropriate board committee. The members of the board committee work with administration and the superintendent to assure that the members fully understand the matter. After the committee discusses the matter, it is then shared with the other board members for consideration. Only then is it placed on the agenda for board discussion and action at a public meeting. Tonight is our second Fergus Implementation Special Committee meeting. I want to start off by thanking Dr. Gilbert and the administration for their work around implementation of the Fergus recommendations. One of the first steps Dr. Gilbert took as acting superintendent was to schedule a meeting with Dr. Fergus and the district administration to review the district's implementation plans that were presented to the board during the October 30th meeting. Tonight, Dr. Gilbert will update the board on how that initial meeting went, and he will discuss any potential modifications that are being made to the district's implementation plans as a result of that meeting. We will also receive an update on the monitoring process too. After the district presentation, we will have one public speaks portion of the meeting, and then the board will adjourn the public meeting. So with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Gilbert.
Thank you, President Whitletter, members of the board, members of the SLT who are with us. Thank you all who are also watching online with us this evening. I'm going to attempt to share my screen. I did decide to do a brief presentation, which I will share with the board and we will make available tomorrow, just to kind of guide us along our discussion today. So, okay. I hope you all can see my screen. So this is the second part of our report on the implementation of the Fergus recommendations, or the Rutgers report, as we call it. I showed this particular slide when I did the first one, and I just wanted to reiterate that this slide just really talks about what is guiding us through this process. It's found on page 8 of the executive summary, which talks about how we have to center this work on the needs of our Black and Latinx population and our free and reduced lunch eligible families. Also keeping in mind that as we do this work, we will be very intentional about trying to create spaces for families, students, educators to have discussions because we want people to know that this work is in the benefit of all of us, and that, we want to make sure everyone can understand what we're doing, also be part of the process, which also helps us to build trust. This is actually a new slide because what I did fail to put in the previous one, I just wanted to reiterate that at the bottom of that page, Dr. Fergus talks about how these recommendations are designed to put us on a trajectory to have fully integration or to have this thing implemented within the next 3 to 5 years. I also thought it was good to put this slide here is because when we met with Dr. Fergus on the 21st of November, he really talked to us about how, full implementation is around a 5 year process to kind of get that done. And so keeping that at the forefront that we do this work is important. I know that people are probably looking at this and going, now we're waiting again, but we are going to be having internal discussions about what are things we can do in the present to try to narrow many of those gaps that people have, that the lawsuit speaks to, that Dr. Fergus spoke to in his report. And so, there are several things we're going to work on to take care of some of the immediate things that we need to do in order to start narrowing the gaps that are pretty prevalent, which led to, the lawsuit, but which also were identified heavily by Dr. Fergus in his report. As I share with you on the 30th, I'm going to always have this slide when we do our presentation. The next several slides, these are the recommendations. However, I'm not going to read them each time, so I'm not going to read them now, but these are the curriculum and instruction recommendations. There were 7 of those recommendations. These are intervention recommendations. They've primarily dealt with our INRS process, and of all of the recommendations, I think we're the furthest along in implementing these 4 recommendations, and this is one that we're fully in the process of working through right now, really helping our leaders develop that tiered system, but also really put a lot of work in helping to normalize our INRS processes, and now in the process of monitoring those to make sure that we are doing what we're supposed to be doing. And so I think of all the areas, this is the area that you're going to see the greatest growth and the greatest work, and we're hoping to start seeing some great impactful things happen following with that work that we've done with INRS. These are the 7 recommendations that deal with the pedagogical capacity with an equity lens. These really are really about how we're going to help build our staff capacity to actually be great stewards of this work that we're doing, and how we're going to help to make sure we are supporting our students and giving them opportunities to also grow, but also make sure our educators are in a position to provide all of those whole school supports, but most importantly, be able to meet the needs from a culture responsive standpoint for our young people. And then finally, there were 5 intentional integration recommendations. And one of the things that has happened since October 30th meeting, we have had our first meeting with the ALS group to go over some of these, and there will be a next step in where I'm going to have the members from the ALS group sit down with Dr. Fergus, who he's also agreed to meet with, to kind of help us really tease out a process going forward to present this model, this 3 to 5 year model and implementation of those recommendations. If you remember, when I did the presentation on October 30th, we hadn't quite figured out what those look like. So part of that process is going to be having the ALS group and Dr. Fergus connect so that we can start moving forward. And we hope to get that meeting together real soon. So, some of the things that I want to highlight since our meeting the last time, as our board president duly noted, a group of leaders from our SLT met with Dr. Fergus on November 21st. It was an in-person meeting, and he really, prior to coming into that meeting, we also sent him a draft of our implementation plan that we presented on the 30th. So he had an opportunity to really look through it. He offered no revisions to the plan at this time because what you really wanted us to focus on and what we spent our hour together with him talking about was, what does successful implementation look like? In other words, how are we going to go about making sure that when we implement these recommendations, they are going to be actually effective and successful for our young people going forward. So here are the 5 stages of implementation in terms of, he's done several equity audits here on our district, with the last one happening in June. And so what that also provided us is number 2, which was an outline of where we want to go. So looking at the equity audit that he provided us, that gives us our roadmap to what are the things that he suggested we can do as a school system to meet the needs of our BIPOC students. Number 3 is installation. What are the infrastructure pieces needed for successful implementation and sustainability? And this is one of the reasons why he did not offer many revisions to our plan, because he put very strong emphasis on the fact that the first thing we need to do is make sure we have in place the infrastructure pieces for this implementation to be sustainable, right? So to make sure we have 2 main buckets were around a data infrastructure, so that we're able to capture the much needed data that we need in order to make sure we are narrowing gaps, paying attention to details, and being able to continue to meet the needs of our students. But then he also talked a lot about making sure we have that professional development infrastructure. He really felt like these were the 2 big pieces of the pot that we needed to make sure we spent time developing, because these are the 2 that really lead to more sustainability. And when he talked about professional development piece, he talked about not only being the model of lecturing and giving out information, but looking at how we want to model what it is we need our educators to do for our young people, and also looking at the practice that they have in their classes and in schools, and what they're doing in their schools, and then really making sure that, you know, we build a successful workforce with the capacity to be as culturally responsive as possible to our students of color. And then the initial implementation. So once you have that infrastructure in place, you can really begin with some solid implementation plans. I highlighted these 2 in blue in that he identified for us, and we pretty much figured out that where we're lying at right now are in between 3 and 4 right now. So we're in the process of really looking at our infrastructure pieces, making sure we have them where they need to be. And then we're looking also at our initial implementation of things to get there. We'll probably be in these middle 2 spaces throughout the duration of really trying to build out his implementation plan. He wanted to put emphasis on that because number 5, which is sustainability, is only grown out of if you have the infrastructure in place and if you've done a good job of effectively implementing the things that you want to put in place. That's what builds sustainability. And so that 5th part, that sustainability part, can't come in until we are fully implementing the recommendations that he's given us. So, and that's what this slide kind of highlights. So what's next towards moving towards implementation? First, going to have a meeting with our internal implementation team, the members of our SLT who met with Dr. Fergus, to really look at year 1 in a strategy that we pulled out. So when we presented the plan to you, we had it broken down years 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 5. Really going back and looking at the things we said we wanted to do in excuse me, in year 1, to make sure we have put the proper emphasis on building that infrastructure that he talked to us about, primarily looking at any data infrastructure pieces we need and our professional development infrastructure pieces, as he suggested to us on the 21st. Um, our president also mentioned the fact that we're getting an update on the monitoring plan. We are scheduled to meet quarterly with our monitor, who is Justice Wallace. And at that meeting will be representatives from the Black Parents Workshop and their legal representation, Dr. Fergus, myself, and other possible representatives of our district, but also our attorney will be there, where he will get updated on what we're doing through implementation so far. Our first meeting is scheduled to be in December. I think tentatively right now it's scheduled for December 14th. And in that particular meeting, we'll probably just outline the things that we showed you on October 30th and talk a little bit about, him coming to our district to talk to us on the 21st. And just to give Justice Wallace the indication that he needs, that we are being serious about moving our implementation forward. I also plan to set up a follow-up meeting with Dr. Fergus and our leadership in January. Since we're meeting and quarterly in December, I felt like we didn't have to bring him back in December to meet. So we'll do our quarterly meeting with him in December, our first quarterly meeting with him in December. And then in January, I'm going to work to bring him back, where we can actually start helping us dig through that year 1 and those year 1 processes that we put down in that strategic plan, because there are some things we need to get immediately started on, so that when we come back to you at the end of this school year, we can have some definitely areas of success to show that our implementation is moving forward. And finally, in January, that report that we present every year are based on the lawsuit, where we have to talk about our enrollment data for our district, and not only the district in general, but also in our higher level classes. And that's broken down demographically and also by gender. That presentation will happen in January as well. So those are the next 4 next steps that would come out of what's next for us to do this work. And I think that's it, Madam President. So I can stand for any questions that the members of the board may have for me at this time.
Sorry, I was muted. Thank you so much, Dr. Gilbert and team. We really appreciate that. I'll start with turning it over to see if I have any board questions. Ms. Duval-Wilson.
Thanks. Thank you, Dr. Gilbert. That was great. It's good to see that we are bringing all parties together. So thank you for doing that. And I love that there's next steps with future meetings. So I only had 2 things. One was, you remember we had this document that had all the columns in it, what was in the settlement. Is this document going to continue to be updated for the board to track progress? That's the first question.
Yes, absolutely. So we've got like several documents running right now. We have that document that you just pointed out, and we have our actual implementation plan document. What we actually tried to do was make sure the initial things that we put in that first document that's available to the public matched up with some of the things that we were doing in our long plan. So next, what we'll have to do is add things to that public facing document that you just showed us, so that it's consistent with where we're going. But yes, that document is living and breathing, and we will make sure it gets updated so the public can know what's going on towards our implementation planning.
Okay, that's great. That document's really helpful. The only other thing I was going to comment on, you said during the November 21 meeting, Dr. Fergus mentioned that wanted to know, like, what does successful implementations look like? And I think that goes back to the SMART goals that you all were putting together for all the phases. And some of those SMART goals still need to be finalized a little bit with some deadlines. And I think we talked about, like, measuring success at the last committee meeting. So yeah, I would agree with him. And I think as you dig into year one, that will be one of the things that I would like to see, is that those SMART goals are honed in a little bit more, maybe with some specific deadlines. Or I think we had said, like, what does it mean from like an achievement standpoint or from a numbers standpoint? How do we quantify some of the goals, so that we can understand how we're improving or how we're meeting the goal in the end? So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And sorry, Arun, Board Member Vadlamani, I see your hands up, but I just wanted to ask, because I want to piggyback off of what Nubia just said. Dr. Gilbert, did he mention, like, should there be academic achievement data points that throughout this like 3 to 5 year installation implementation phase, did he mention there's things that we should be looking at to measure the success of the work that's getting done?
So he didn't give us any specific targets at this time, not to say that he's not going to do that. I think his purpose for November 21 was to really focus our attention in making sure we're looking at those stages of implementation and make sure we have those stages in our mind, especially the infrastructure pieces. What he talked about data specifically was, in order for us to be successful, we have to make sure we have the data infrastructure in place that can help us monitor our successes and our failures, right? And so that's going to be some conversations we're going to have going up. I was meeting with our assistant superintendents today, and Zoila in the CNI office today, and that was a huge conversation of ours. We are going to have to do something about our data warehouse. I see Keith on the screen cringing every time he hears us talk about this. But we're going to have to do something about our data warehousing, because that was one of the first things he talked about. We've got to have a way to collect this data in a more intentional way, so, and a user-friendly way too, right? Because we want our leaders to be able to use the data. This data doesn't just need to be designed for us to pull together things and then present to the board. It has to be usable data that our principals can use, that our teachers can use. And so right now we have Performance Matters. Performance Matters is tricky. I'm going to use that word. And but we know that there are other data warehouses out there that are more user friendly. And so we will be looking for. So when we talk about this document being a living and breathing document, you all asked for possible resource recommendations. Well, that's one of the things why we have to keep that open, because as we have these conversations with Dr. Fergus, and as we look towards what building that infrastructure looks like, we may have to add some ask to what those resources may go. But I know one of the first initial asks to honor this whole infrastructure building will be around a data warehouse and getting us a data warehouse that can help us handle that. The other big piece of it, and I know you just talked about data, but we have to also coincide with that professional development piece, because he's also put emphasis on that, because we need to make sure that we're building the capacity toward that sustainability of our staff and who have the most direct contact with our young people. So those two kind of things work together.
No, I think it's helpful to have the time frame to manage. I mean, you guys have a lot on your plate with all these recommendations, but to manage district's expectations, the board's expectations, the community's expectations, because I know we want this work to happen overnight, but to do it thoroughly and to do it well. And one of the first conversations that you and I had was that the sustainability piece, right? We want this work to actually make a dent and to actually improve outcomes for all students. So I think that it's just knowing that this 3 to 5 year timeline is what is sort of expected is helpful, so that we can get it right. So I see it was Board Member Vadlamani and then Dr. Telesford.
So Dr. Gilbert, I remember, if I heard you right, you said you were going to be meeting with the monitor on December 21st. And at that point, I'm sure you will have a bunch of documents, reports, whatever, data sets, whatever it is. Can you share that with the board before you, go to the monitor? So at least we have a first look at all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you already have it all, but I'll just give it all to y'all so you can all have one collective packet. The things that we will present to the monitor will be the implementation planning document that Ms. Duvall Wilson showed, the 3 to 5 year plan document that we have already presented. Those will probably be the main two pieces, but we definitely will make sure anything that we go before the monitor with, we'll make sure we put in your hands so you can know what it is we're going to be looking at.
Well, thanks.
You're welcome. And just a correction, it's December 14th. If I said the 21st, that was a slip on my part, but we're meeting with the monitor on December 14th.
Dr. Telesford?
Yes, I know we're talking about the data infrastructure. Back in July, we just had a vendor come in to give a presentation on a possible infrastructure that was more user-friendly, that could be used by administration and by teachers. Do we have, I guess a not timeline, but have we had any more discussions about that software package? Because that was the same meeting where Dr. Fergus came to our meeting. He spoke to us about, I guess, building up a data infrastructure and also building a data plan. So I think those are two things that go very well hand in hand, that we start looking at those software packages and also start thinking about what the data plan will be.
Yes, that will definitely be
Take
one.
the-
I'm sorry. Were you finished, Dr. Telesford? I'm sorry.
Sorry, something happened on my audio.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, just it'll be important for us to take a temperature on the district every now and then. So just have a data plan set for that, and also looking at the software package that we talked about in July.
So yes, the software, that software package would be one of the ones, but we were also going to try to open up for a couple of other ones just so we can have a real clear look at what else is out there, so we can find a package that meets the needs that we that we need to have. So, but that data package is not off the table. It'll be one of the ones we will also be considering. And I wrote down your suggestion about having a data plan and what that looks like. And so we'll take that back as a team and kind of flesh that out, because while we're waiting on a data warehouse, and this is one thing I talked about in the earlier meeting this afternoon, we still got to keep the work moving. And so we may not like performance matters at this time, but it's what we have right now. And so we still got to figure out how to make that work and the other things work, because like I say, there's still things we have to do to meet the needs of our students. And so that's part of our infrastructure plan now, but we want to make sure we have, like I say, the right warehouse to help us do all the things that we need done to support our young people.
Kwawi, is that an old hand?
That's all him. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Do we have, oh, go ahead.
I just have this is more of like an administrative question. Are we doing recaps of these, like official recaps like we do with all of our other committees? Because I don't remember if we did last time, but I'm just so used to all of our committees. We know we have our recaps, after. So, I mean, I'm taking notes. I just didn't know if we were formally going to do that with these or how that was going to work.
That's a good idea. Should we do, we might want to add it to the committee report outs for our main meeting, just very short.
Supposed to. It's in the resolution.
Yeah, but we never actually said this person's going to do a recap, this person. So I don't know if that's something we want to talk about now or later, but you know me, I'm always taking notes. Obviously we can use Dr. Gilbert's presentation as part of a recap, but there should be a readout.
We haven't had a board meeting since the first committee meeting was October 30th. Now this one, so we would have to do 2 readouts, which is fine. Yeah,
that's true. Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, so we will, thank you so much for that. We really appreciate it. We are now going to move on to the hearings of individuals and delegates. Thank you to folks on the line here. I think we have about 5 of you folks for joining us this evening. The board has time limits by policy, so each individual will be given 3 minutes to speak. And please do your best to stay within the time afforded to you. So we will start with Charlie Drechsler.
Hi, my name is Charlie Drechsler, and I'm a junior at Columbia. I am the treasurer for Cougar Nation, the social media representative for the class of 2025, and the captain of varsity field hockey. As a sophomore, I was diagnosed with a language disorder that mainly affects my short-term memory and rapid recall. I was given a 504 plan with extra time accommodations, and it helped me raise my grades and gain more confidence in the classroom. I was able to use the period 9 conference period to complete assignments and tests, and I didn't have to miss any of my class periods to attend games. When it was announced over the summer that the conference was moving to period 1, I was instantly worried. My 9th period class was honors chemistry, and I knew I would miss at least 10 periods of this class for away games. How could I keep up with the hard work of an honors class with that many absences? I couldn't teach myself chemistry to catch up, and I felt like I was being set up to fail. As I expected, I quickly fell far behind in this class and in other classes as a result. My teacher, Miss Booker, has been amazing and supportive wherever she could and even came to a game to cheer me on. But the cards have been stacked against me from the beginning. Progress reports were released and I was failing this class. To help you understand how this works in real life, I will share 2 examples. For instance, if I miss a class on Tuesday to leave for an away game and the teacher's next available conference period was on Thursday, I would sit in Wednesday's class completely lost. Or if I had to take a test on Tuesday and I needed to use my extra time and the teacher's next available conference period wasn't for 2 days, I would struggle to retain this information due to my language disorder. I know how important my junior year grades are for my college applications, but because of this schedule change and the fact that my 504 accommodations aren't readily available to me, I will spend the rest of the year trying to salvage my grades. I would like the board to understand that all athletes are being punished by this new schedule. We are not getting the extra sleep we need. Instead, we are having even longer days because we have to use period 1 to make up for the classes that we missed when we had away games. I have friends who play 3 sports, and I don't know how they are expected to be successful. I also think that teachers who coach are put in a no-win situation. My coach teaches AP level classes and has a 9th period class that is affected when we have an away game. Other teachers coach 2 sports and will be out of the classroom more than 20 times in a school year. How can that work? I would like the board to understand that all students with 504s are being punished by this new schedule. We cannot access our extra time accommodations if we have to wait so long to complete a test. I feel like the decision to move the conference periods didn't take into account all the students who need support. I would like the board to help us by returning the schedule to have a period 9 conference at the start of 2nd semester. It is not too late to change things so that all students have an equal chance of being successful in their classes this year. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Charlie. We appreciate you coming on. Next up is Terry Adams.
Hello. Hi.
Hi, Terry.
Hi. I don't think I'm on video, but can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear it. You don't have to be on video either.
Okay. Okay. So I have 2 daughters at Columbia. Both play tennis. One on varsity, who's a junior, Claire, and one on JV, Shay. And yes, they both had to miss, I would say, 6 to 8 9th period classes in the fall for away tennis matches, sometimes even part of 8th, depending on how far away the match was, if it was, 45 minutes to an hour away. And they missed a lot of class. Claire had honors Spanish 4. It proceeds at a pretty quick pace. The whole class is in Spanish. So when she was away, there's no slowing down. It's just, okay, turn in the work when you get back, but you've missed the class. So I think last year when there was a conference period 9th, then, you know, at least for those kids who didn't take 9 periods, you didn't miss a whole class. You had to duck out of 8th a little early for an away match, but this year, right, it really penalizes the student athletes, which I feel is unfortunate because obviously Columbia, you know, otherwise supports their athletes. And again, my daughters play one sport, potentially the freshmen may do track, but I can't even imagine if there were 3 and how many classes that would be. You know, so I do hope that they revisit this. And I guess the answer is returning the conference period to period 9. The other thing I wonder about is pushing the start time of away games to later, but I realize that's not just a Columbia issue, it's a district issue with, you know, the other schools we play. But yes, I would definitely like the district to look into this as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. We now have Jennifer Paganini.
Hello, do you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, hi. I don't think I'm on video either, but I'll just jump right to it. You know, as the other speakers, I'm certainly concerned with the schedule change that was made, you know, really at the 11th hour before the start of the school year. And I'm, you know, really struggling to understand sort of the contradictions that are going on, right? We've established a vice principal to handle attendance for students. There's a hyper focus on attendance for our students, but yet we've created a schedule that will impact our student athletes and will require them to not be in attendance of all of their classes, you know, it's, you know, it is the administration's, you know, role to ensure that our students at all academic levels, not all kids excel and can play catch up during a conferencing period. You know, it is the administrator's job to ensure that these students are getting the instruction that they need, that is required by state law, and creating the schedule where, you know, a large percentage of our student athletes will be missing courses just is really unfathomable to me. You know, my child is you know, an aspiring baseball player. He's been looking forward to playing for Columbia High School for as long as I can remember. He's also quite dedicated to his studies, and these two passions are clearly at odds. He's set to miss 10 World History 2 honors classes come this spring. You know, these classes are quickly paced, and really nothing can recreate the academic environment like a classroom. We can't pretend that the conference period will do the same. And, you know, and on top of that, I just worry about sort of what we're teaching our children and these mixed messages. You know, we sit in these meetings and the coaches underscore the importance of academics to be eligible to play a sport, how academics is sort of the cornerstone of these athletes, yet we're putting them in a position to put that, to make that compromised and to miss this period 9. I've sent letters to Mr. Sanchez and Mr. Porfido. They've gone unanswered. And, you know, my rally call to them is the same as it is to you today, to put the students first, to put a schedule that puts the students' academics at the forefront. We know we can make last minute changes. We did it when this was changed during the summer. And I ask that this be reconsidered for the start of the next semester. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. We have next Marion Rabb. Marion?
Yes. Hi, can
Oh.
you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Hi, good evening, and thank you for letting me speak. My name is Marion Rabb. and I live in Maplewood. And my almost 17-year-old son is a junior at Columbia and also has special needs. He has mild CP. I am also the CPAC liaison to CHS, and I wanted to bring up another group of students who I think are being very heavily impacted, unfortunately, by the decision to move the conference period from ninth period to first period, and those are all of our special needs students, students with IEPs and Section 504s who have extra time written into their IEPs or 504s on exams. I think we have a really serious potential legal liability situation here too, because asking our special needs kids, who, as we all know, are among the most vulnerable students in our district, to wait until the next day, if that even happens, because apparently now we only have conference periods on Monday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. And I know my son himself was able to go to ninth period to finish tests and exams when he was a freshman and a sophomore, pretty much any day on ninth period. But right now we've limited the conference periods to Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and it is not working well for our special needs students, and that is an understatement. I implore the board and Principal Sanchez, who I have met with other CPAC representatives, to move the conference period back to ninth. I think there are so many unintended consequences, unfortunately, for this move, which I believe was done in good faith to help ninth graders. But my lane is special needs students, and our special needs students are being is having a severe disparate impact on special needs kids. To ask them to come back the next morning to take an exam is not appropriate under the Individuals with Disabilities in Education Act. And I fear the district is opening itself up to a class action lawsuit on this matter, because it is, in my humble opinion, not appropriate to ask our special needs kids to do this, especially if, say, they have an exam on a Thursday. Are they supposed to wait until the next Monday to finish it? I'm not sure, and neither are the teachers. It's caused a lot of havoc and a lot of stress among our most vulnerable population of students. It's not just the sports kids, and I really feel for them too, who are being impacted by this. It's all of our special needs students who have an accommodation for extra time on exams. And once again, I know I'm at the end of my time. Thank you for listening, and I implore the board and and Principal Sanchez to switch this back in January. Once again, I think we're opening ourselves up to another lawsuit, and I hope in my heart that doesn't have to happen. Thank you for letting me speak, and have a good evening.
Thank you, Marion. Our last public speaks is Beth Constantino.
Hello?
Hey, Beth, we can hear you.
Okay, hi. 1 second here, let me find my notes. So I'm Beth Cosentino, resident of Maplewood. I have 2 children in the district. I'm speaking tonight regarding the list of recommendations by Dr. Fergus, specifically under the intervention recommendations, number 3, which says develop a list of tiered interventions for academic and behavioral support. Well, it says academic behavioral support, but I'm assuming it's academic and behavioral. So I'm interested in learning who will be developing the tiered interventions for behavioral support and what that looks like, and how that will be conveyed to parents, and how you'll do it at each level, preschool, elementary, middle, and high school. We've seen that how behaviors are addressed is drastically different dependent on the school and educator. And we talk a lot about school climate and culture and restorative practice, but we continue to see and hear about punitive measures taken towards students. So I hope when this recommendation and this list is being developed, that the appropriate people are in the room working on it. And I just wanted to voice and express that. So thank you.
Thank you, Beth. So that concludes public speaks, right? Mr. Bonds, I didn't miss anyone. I don't think. I'm gonna double check. No.
It looks all good.
Okay, thank you so much. So we are now moving on to the new business portion of the meeting. Is there any new business this evening? Okay. And I apologize. I have a lot of background noise happening up here right now. Sorry about that. Seeing none, I'm going to close new business. And with that, I'd like to make the following motion. The Board of School Estimate will be held tomorrow, Tuesday, November 28th, 2023 at 6 p.m. And the Board of Education will also meet in public session on Thursday, November 30th, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. This meeting will be held virtually. May I have a second? Thank you, Board Member Deval Wilson. All in favor? Okay, that appears to be unanimous. And now I would like to make a motion to adjourn this committee meeting on Monday, November 27th at 7:18 p.m. May I have a second? Thank you, Board Member Eckert. All in favor? Okay, great. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone. And we will see you 2 more times this week. Thanks so much. Bye.